Hello again, my friends. Back with another whiskey review. This time we're going to go with Jack Daniel's Single Barrel. Currently, Jack Daniel's is selling their Single Barrel in a collaboration with, you'll see right there, Ducks Unlimited. And they're selling with a nice tin and these two nice shot glasses for just a couple of dollars more. And the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel is the whiskey we're going to review. You also note that they've specially marked the cap with the Ducks Unlimited thing in a year. So now you may say, Jack Daniel's Single Barrel. Why the heck would I want Jack Daniel's Single Barrel? Just a dab. We don't need too much. Well, let me tell you, Jack Daniel's Single Barrel is not a bad whiskey. Now, first of all, Jack Daniel's itself. You can see, get the color right there. Nice. Who knows if they added caramel, but you can see it's an attractive color. Jack Daniel's is in itself not a horrible whiskey. It's $20. For a few dollars more, you can get a little bit better whiskey. Much better whiskey, in truth. But Jack Daniel's not a bad whiskey. For the price, very drinkable. It goes great in colas. You don't have to feel guilty about putting it in things like you might if you buy a better whiskey, even Makers, which is only a little bit more expensive. You'll be like, why am I putting Makers in this kind of thing? But Jack, you don't feel like that. The smell is kind of a cinnamon. It's hard to get a taste of. Almost nutmeg? Maybe? I mean, it's hard to tell, but it's kind of got that almost like an eggnog, kind of. It's not eggnog, obviously, but it's kind of got some of those notes in it. Not bad. In comparison to Jack Daniel's, this is a richer flavor. Now, the Jack Daniel's has a couple other ones. They also sell the Gentleman. Now, my understanding here on this is the Gentleman is every Jack Daniel's is passed through charcoal. That's why they call it a Tennessee whiskey. It's because it's passed through. It's basically bourbon that's been filtered through charcoal. The Single Barrel and Jack Daniel's, your green label and your black label, are passed through at the beginning of the process. Then they're put in oak barrels and they're aged. The barrels are then sold to Scotland, where they're used to age Scotch. Glenmorangie, I believe, in particular, uses Jack Daniel's barrels to give them some of their flavor. Glenmorangie is a great whiskey, by the way. Better than Jack, I would say. The Single Barrel is, of course, selected by the master distiller, and he does an excellent job. That's nice. That's very nice. It's bottled at 47%, and it's interesting. I don't know that I'm going to cut this a little bit, but I don't know that it needs to be cut. And that's got a nice little slight spice. I'm just going to add a dab of water to open it up a little bit. Jack Daniel's was controversial to drop their black label and their Gentleman down to 40%. That was 1 point from 45%. The Single Barrel is bottled at 47%. And that seems, for my taste at least, and that opened up those spice notes. That is nice. That is pleasant. I mean, again, it's almost like a holiday drink. It's got such nice cinnamon and spice notes. Delicious. The taste is like the smell. You get some subtle spice. Just trying to go taste that melon, but they do a great job at Jack Daniel's at selecting the best barrels for their Single Barrel. Evidently, because this is much better in quality. Now, I had thought the Gentleman was better. I'll review the Gentleman, but as I'm drinking this, I think this is better. It's a little bit more expensive. This usually goes for about $37. Gentleman goes for $29. Black goes for $19, and then their other one I think goes for like $17. And don't ever buy the green label; it's crap. The black, or the O number 7, is a blend from barrels to get a particular consistency. Not a bad one to keep in your refrigerator, but it can't compare to this. This is, to say the least, delightful. Just very relaxing, smooth. Certainly tastes. I mean, again, they obviously it's mellowed. That's what they say the charcoal does, is mellow the whiskey, kind of tame it a little bit. You're basically pouring it through wood, burnt wood, and so that is going to kind of tame it to some extent. You can taste it. But that just has a nice little spicy layer there to it. Beautiful little, again, very almost Christmassy in a way. Again, you don't. It doesn't taste like eggnog, but it has eggnog notes to it. Right, the whiskey. It's bottled about with the right percentage, and it's an excellent job by Jack Daniel's. I mean, Jack Daniel's is going to be able to get. They move more barrels. If you assume there's variance in barrels, Jack Daniel's moves more barrels than just about anybody in the world. So they're going to have more to choose from, right? So it makes sense that if you assume there's a mean population, we're getting statistics here, but if you assume that you would think that to some extent large distilleries like Jack Daniel's would have an advantage at single barrels. And the reason is, and I'm not saying they do, but if they selected well, if we assume, which this is not a safe assumption, but let's make that assumption. Let's assume that they can pick the best barrels. Well, even if you assume their average barrel is a little bit weaker than, say, a smaller distillery, let's just say my favorite single barrel, which is Four Roses right now. So let's say their average is not as good as Four Roses, which I don't know. So, or Makers, or whoever. So, your average isn't as good. But because you make so many more barrels, you've actually, if there's variance in the quality of each barrel, and you would assume there is, they're mixing these at all these distilleries. And then the single barrel, they pick the best. But if you assume there's variance in the barrels, then if you could actually get at that, the larger your population of barrels, the better you would expect the peak barrel to be. To some extent, even if the mean is a little bit lower, right? You can imagine, like, if you've got a normal distribution, and then you make a bigger normal distribution, well, what happens? You get more out of the tails, right? And so, that may be what's happening here, is this is really good, and we're trying for Jack Daniel's. And a great casing, by the way. I strongly recommend you get this set. This is a nice little cup. Nice little label here. Nice Ducks Unlimited co-op. Sold in a beautiful tin with a nice painting of a Labrador Retrieval. And the whiskey is delightful. This is probably better than even Woodford. I would say that is a delightful little whiskey. Of an excellent job, Jack Daniel's. This was a great little whiskey. Now, not all single barrels are created equally from Jack Daniel's. The last one I had, I didn't think was as good as Gentleman. That one I think is better. Strongly recommended.